Hi, this is Denise LaRosa, and you're listening to Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, where moms get together to share our joys and challenges while also providing listeners with some invaluable resources and information on parenting. Thank you for joining me today. The winner of my back-to-school photo contest is Stacy from Durham, North Carolina. Her photo of her two girls, Evelyn and Ayla, is simply adorable, and you can check it out on my Facebook page, Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. Stacy won Mary Kay's Satin Hands Kit. Congratulations, Stacy, and thank you for participating. Today's guest is an amazing advocate for early childhood education and an even more amazing mother. Michelle Figlar is the Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children, a local affiliate of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, serving a 10-county region in southwestern Pennsylvania with over 1,400 members. Since joining PAEYC in February 2006, Ms. Figlar has worked with leaders in southwestern PA to grow membership, create programs that enhance professional development and NAEYC accreditation, and develop a coordinated plan for early care and education advocacy efforts. Michelle serves as a member of the Pennsylvania Early Learning Council and the Pennsylvania Early Childhood Advocates Committee. In addition, she is an advisory board member for the Arts Education Collaborative, the Toonseum, and the Community College of Allegheny County Early Childhood Program. Michelle also serves as an adjunct instructor for the University of Pittsburgh and Community College of Allegheny County. Before returning to her hometown of Pittsburgh, Michelle served as an early childhood program manager for the Office of Early Childhood Invest in Children Initiative in Cleveland, Ohio. Michelle was chosen as a Head Start Fellow in 2003 and has had opportunities to work with the National Association of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies and the National Head Start Association. She also served as a Head Start Director, a preschool special education teacher, and a VISTA volunteer. Michelle recently co-authored an article published in the March 2013 edition of Young Children Journal entitled Creating Space, Leader Development in Early Childhood Education. I had the opportunity to chat with Michelle about the need for high-quality early learning programs. She also shared with me some ways that parents and caregivers can foster learning in children ages 0 to 5 by providing some invaluable tips and resources. Take a listen.
As Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children, tell us a little bit more about what you do and what you have to offer as far as resources for families and early learning facilities.
So, our work really touches the people who care for children each and every day. And so what we have available, and we're really starting to expand that into what we can offer parents and families, because a lot of our work really focuses on the child care provider. So whether it be the grandma who's taking care of a grandbaby during the day, or a family child care provider, someone who's caring for children in their home, or a center-based provider, whether it's in a child care center, a preschool program, a Head Start program, and really helping to take early learning standards. Pennsylvania has early learning standards, taking them and being able to translate them into everyday activities to help the adults who are caring for children every day. So that's sort of what we have to offer. So we have trainings, we have family gatherings, we are raising reader parent clubs. So it's time where parents can come, families can come with their children, and with a child development specialist, and really in an informal way, Denise. I think that's what's so powerful about this. Really model, how to talk to children, how to sing to children, how to play with children, how to read to children, in an effort to really build up those language skills, which are, I really hate to use the word the most important, but really they are. If you can teach children language and you can start to make sure they have robust vocabularies going into school, reading is going to be easier for them, writing is going to be easier for them, and then learning is going to be easier for them. So it's really about this language. We want to try to avoid a language gap for children. So that's the focus, one of the big buckets of focus of our work.
Yes, absolutely. And as a teacher who would receive the babies at as early as kindergarten, I taught kindergarten and second grade, and I taught actually several elementary grades. that I can't back you up enough on that. And you really touched on something, Michelle, that I think some family members who maybe don't feel that they have the greatest education themselves, or they feel like they don't have that teaching degree. What can I do with my child? What do I have to offer? You really touched on the fact that there's those practical, everyday things that go such a long way. Do you want to talk a little more about that?
And it is about making it accessible. What we try to do is really talk about the everyday interactions. So we are working on a really great project with the Fred Rogers Company, the producers of Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, which is really trying to help parents and family child care providers capture everyday moments so that they can understand how talking to your child, I think that's the biggest thing, talking to your babies, which isn't intuitive for every adult, right? So, talking to your baby, interacting with them, smiling at them, singing to them, exposing them to words, exposing them to sounds. So really those everyday things that when you're, even in a busy life of managing a house, managing a job, right, running from here to there, how do you take time for those everyday interactions? So we'll talk about things like, I know you've got to take the clothes out of the washing machine, you've got to do laundry, right? Those are things that all of us have to do, right? So put the baby up on top of the washing machine so that the baby can make eye contact with you and literally talk out loud about doing the laundry. For some adults, it seems silly, right? It seems silly for us because we're not, like it or not, we're not very playful people sometimes when we get into adulthood. So how do we just say, hey, put the baby on top of the washing machine if you're loading, or on top of the dryer if you're loading the washing machine, or down on the floor when you're taking clothes out and say, hey, baby, I'm taking the clothes out of the dryer. Oh, they're nice and warm now. Wow, they feel soft. They feel fluffy. Let them, just use all of those descriptor words. And I know it sounds silly, but those are some of the things you have to practice with families, right? We have to practice it as teachers. You have to be comfortable with others to say, I know this is silly, girl, but, kids are learning language this way. And it's fun.
That. You know what, Michelle? You're a breath of fresh air. Thank you. I want all my family friends to hear this. It explains my madness because they sometimes crazy when I'm talking, ever since my eldest is 2. And, she was teeny tiny, and I would be telling her, oh, I'm taking the dishes out of the dishwasher, I'm doing this, and people are like, why are you telling, do you think she understands it? I'm like, hey, she will someday.
Yes, and she's getting all of those words, so you're in vocabulary. I think the second thing we always tell adults is that please don't use, it's so customary for us to want to do baby talk with babies. I'm even guilty of it with my own children, but we try to remind them. So talk to them with the words you want them to use, right? So think about the words you want them to be saying when they're 4 and 5. Use those words with them. Yeah, they might not, they might not understand them exactly, but you know what? They don't know what ball is either, right? You're teaching them vocabulary. You're teaching them definition. So use the words you want to see your child use in the future. And talk to them. It's hard until they start to talk back to you. I think that's the hardest thing, right, is that time when they're not using words to talk back to you because you think like, oh my gosh, here I am just talking to this baby and this baby's looking at me like I'm goofy, right? But you're not, because you're giving them all of that language. And then if you just wait a moment and watch their expressions, that's the third thing we talk a lot about. Watch the expressions on your child's face and think about that as communication, because they are answering you, because they're either looking at you brighter or they're babbling back, and you want to give that. While you don't want to necessarily use baby talk like, doggy dog, it's sort of like baby words, you do want to give those sounds back to your baby when they say ba, 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 because you're teaching them that, oh, you're listening to me. Mommy's listening to me. Daddy's listening to me. And so they are talking to you. You just have to remember you don't know their language. That's what I always say. It's not that they don't know our language. We don't know their language, because they're going to learn our language and we forget how to talk like them. So just listen to them. give them a chance to respond. Either it's with their eyes or their mouth opening and closing or making babbling or clapping or whatever it is. They really are listening to you, and they are trying to talk back.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm over here in my teacher language giving you a silent hear, as I used to say.
Yay!
I mean, it's incredible, and I'm telling you, mothers, family members will benefit greatly from this. I am also kind of we're all guilty of the baby talk to a certain extent, but as one of the things I tend to say, and I actually wrote about it on my blog, is you can't be saying goo goo gaga to your baby and then get frustrated whenever he or she doesn't know 30 words by, whatever age. It's like you really have to expose. And that seems to be what you're really touching on. It's just exposure. It really does a lot.
Right, it does. And, of course you want that give and take, right? You want to imitate them so that you're acknowledging the sounds they're making, but you also want to describe. To me, it's this sort of running description of what's sort of happening during the day with them. I think the other thing is, I know that one of the things we talk a lot about to families, and even myself as a mom, the grocery store, was my sort of favorite place, right? Because I could put the baby right in front of me, right, and I could talk about everything I saw in the grocery store as I was walking through there. So I'd have my 2-month-old or even my toddler, and I would say, oh, let's go get some apples and let's go get the bananas. And you're teaching all of that vocabulary, and you're teaching colors, and you can start the counting. Everybody thinks that we want kids to learn their ABCs and count their 1, 2, 3s. Yes, absolutely. As a former kindergarten teacher, you want that too. But there's so much more beyond that, right? You want kids to be able to describe the world around them. You want them to have rich vocabulary. You want them to understand that one means one banana, what one really means. And those are things that you can just do throughout the day, right? Every parent, every family member is so busy, and I always, and I really want to underscore that, right? People's lives are busy, and they're busy in different ways. This is really just about taking an everyday interaction, taking that time, and getting at that level with your child and exposing them to the learning that's naturally around us.
Oh, wow. That just totally gave me goosebumps because there's more. And that really takes me to the next question, because in all of this preparation and exposure and these experiences that you're giving your children, I think a lot, and we spoke about this when we talked on the phone the other day, a lot of mothers, parents in general, of children ages 0 to 5 may not realize it, but they can be their child's advocate for their education right now. They don't have to wait until their child is school age. So share with our listeners some ways that they can do that and why it's so important.
Sure. The other big bucket of our work here at the Pittsburgh area AEYC is around advocacy for young children's families and the professionals who work with them. And sometimes we get so caught up, right, in the everyday sort of have-tos when we have young children that you're right. We forget that we can actually use our voice and advocate for high-quality programs. So there's a couple things, right? We are part of a couple different campaigns here in Pennsylvania, and one is called the Early Learning PA campaign, and folks can find it on our website at paeyc.org. And what this is really about is ensuring that families have access for their children to the highest quality programs, right? So we're talking about child care subsidy. Many working families who rely on subsidy don't realize that they can actually advocate for that program, both with the federal government and for the state. So for working families who are trying to literally make ends meet and need assistance with child care costs, when I talk to families, they would say, I didn't realize that I could actually write a letter to my legislator to say, hey, this is critically important, and hey, we really need this help, and we want our child to go to the highest quality facility that they possibly can. Secondly, it's really parents, we just don't realize, and I know we need to do a better job, that only 1 out of 6 eligible children in the state of Pennsylvania even have access to a high-quality pre-K program. So even if you want your child to attend a pre-K program starting at age 3 and you may qualify, there is just not a slot for you. And one of the biggest campaigns we're moving forward now is pre-K for PA, and I'm sure people have heard so much about. We have our mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, Peduto, is really engaged in early childhood education. We're trying to educate both of the gubernatorial candidates, but parents just don't realize that, hey, there are other states that are actually putting more resources in to make sure that families have the opportunity to send their children to high-quality pre-K, which can cost, between $10,000 and $11,000 a year. So we just don't realize that there's actually federal dollars and state dollars that are supporting these programs. We don't think about it because many of us write a check every month for child care or for pre-K, and we don't think, heck, we could actually be a voice for our children to ensure that there's more public dollars going into the system. Finally, I think the other thing that parents really don't realize is that the people who work in this field are significantly underpaid, with most of them still only making around $9 an hour. So the field is it's a very diversified funding stream. There's not there's not a fully funded way of thinking about early childhood education in the United States yet. So very wonderful and highly qualified teachers who choose this field often have to leave it because they can't afford to be in it. So here we are as moms and dads wanting our kids to have high-quality teachers like you, of course, and you can't even afford to do this work. So I think that that's where parents also have to say, hey, I want to be part of a solution here so that we can get the highest qualified teachers into centers to teach our children.
Oh, absolutely. This is just amazing and so helpful in so many ways. And you did mention pre-K for PA, and I know that PAEC is involved, greatly involved in that. So share with us a little more about the campaign and how people can get involved.
Right. So this is a nonpartisan campaign, really focused on first educating the gubernatorial candidates, but also moving into the legislature to really put the focus on how do we increase state resources to ensure that every child in the state of Pennsylvania has access to a high-quality pre-K program. So we're doing that in a couple different ways. One is really showing that there is such a need, right? Again, only 1 out of 6 eligible children are even able to get into a pre-K classroom. So even if you wanted it, you couldn't have it because there's just not a slot. So how do we increase revenues to make sure that children can have access? Secondly, really looking at the research that when kids attend high-quality pre-K, they're going into kindergarten better ready to learn. You're a former kindergarten teacher. I'm sure you can speak, chapters and chapters about this. This is not just about academic skills. I want to underscore that. This is really more about, I think, and I'd love to hear what you think. This is about the social and the emotional readiness for children to be able to go in to a large group setting and be able to pay attention, to be able to follow directions, be able to get along with their neighbor, be able to spend a whole day in school and be able to get through the day and achieve a kindergarten skill set, right, which is about beginning reading and beginning science. And many kindergartners leave kindergarten reading. You know this. So it's really about helping children walk into school ready to learn. And there is so much research on that. And so we've built a broad base of support. We have over 1,000 organizations. We are putting together a leadership council of business leaders. We have business leaders. We have organizations, teachers, and we need parents. We need parents to sign on to the campaign at PreKforPA.org to say, look, we want this for our children. We know this is important if they choose it, right? This is important. And we're not talking about mandatory preschool. However, we do know that most parents are choosing some sort of formal preschool experience for their children because they know that socially they want to be with other kids, right?
Absolutely.
And it's good for them. Yeah. I always say, I was a preschool special ed teacher, and I have 2 kids, and I could teach them all kinds of things, but I can't give them 20 other kids to be with all day long. And when they go to kindergarten, that's what they have to know how to do.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, and I just back you up once again because as a kindergarten teacher, the social piece was absolutely essential in order for students to achieve academically. So you were absolutely right. It's about that social piece because once you have a child that's able to get along with others and able to follow directions, then you can, they're open and able to take in information, and the academics will come. So I just couldn't agree with you more, and I absolutely hope for the best. And I really want people to get involved, and like you said, especially parents. That's so important.
Especially parents, right? And the only other thing I'll add about the campaign is that it's really about parents having access to high-quality pre-K wherever they choose, right? So if parents are already using a high-quality child care program, we're not going to displace that child from that child care program and move them somewhere else. It's really about it's about the quality. We want children to have access to the highest quality programs, which talks about family engagement, teacher education, professional development, ratios. So what we know that makes a high quality program. Parents can use their voice. I have to say, so many of my own friends, they didn't even know there was a place for advocacy for them. They thought that came later when their child got into kindergarten or into the K-12 system.
Wow. Well, now they know. And I know that this is really specific to Pennsylvania in some ways, but a lot of what you're saying is universal, as I like to use that term, that people who are listening that are, let's say, perhaps not from Pennsylvania, they can definitely advocate for their child and look around and seek out opportunities to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, President Obama has a very strong early childhood education agenda. I encourage people from across the country to, reach out to their federal legislators and say this is really important to us as parents. But also many states have really robust either pre-K programs or trying to grow them in the similar way Pennsylvania is, right? That we have educators, business leaders saying this is really important. So this is a trend across the country right now. I think finally people have said, hey, why are we going to try to why are we going to try to remediate instead of saying let's invest in kids when they're little, right? And invest in their families. Mm-hmm. Right, has to go here. So it's a national trend, and it's exciting. It's exciting for the country.
It really, truly is, and it's a trend that I welcome with open arms. Some of the trends that happen here are a little shaky. But
I agree with you, right? And again, it has to be parents, it has to be family members, it has to be professionals saying we want early childhood education, but we want it to be high quality, and we want it to be developmentally appropriate, right? We don't want 2- and 3-year-olds sitting in chairs doing worksheets either, right? We want kids to be able to learn through their play because that is their natural mode of learning. When children are engaged, and I always said when I'm teaching teachers, children can learn every skill they need to learn through Play-Doh. They can learn how to count. They can learn about science. They can learn language. Please, we can't take away play from children because it is how they learn. And so I think that's the other big thing we have to push for parents to really help with our advocacy. We have a Playful Pittsburgh collaborative with lots of different organizations that say, yes, we want more high-quality early childhood education, but we want it to be done through play and inquiry and investigation, right? Little kids need to move. I think all of us need to investigate to be able to learn.
Actually, this quote that I actually find very funny that I forget who said, I believe it was a celebrity, but she said we spend the first 12 months or so of our child's life trying to get them to learn how to walk, and then we spend the rest of their time trying to get them to sit down and be still.
I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally
and we're trying to get them to say their first words, and then we're telling them to be quiet. Like, no, we want to talk. Look at what we're doing. You now make your living talking to people. I make my living talking to people. If I can't communicate an idea to get people to follow, to design a plan and do something great so that kids can have access to high-quality programming, we'll never get anywhere. We have to teach our kids to communicate, whether speak or write or text or blog, because that is the world we're in now.
Right.
We have to.
You're absolutely right.
I don't think classrooms should be quiet, right? I think that, they should be, people should be learning, and kids should be engaged with each other.
Yes. I'm just, like I said, this is such a breath of fresh air, because that is so true. And I was just reflecting on my own experience. Sometimes people would walk into my classroom and be like, oh, it's so loud. It sounded almost like an arcade, from back in the day, and kids were everywhere doing everything. But my goodness, they were just, and that's, I'm not bragging on myself. It was just, I was really fortunate to be at a school that really embraced that kind of learning. We had centers, and you could just see the children just light up. They loved learning, and you just want the children to, you don't want to shove information down their throats. You don't retain anything that way. You want them to love what they're doing.
Absolutely, and I can tell that you were and still are a fantastic teacher, because that's exactly what children need. And I think as parents, again, I'm going to put my parent hat on, we need to be advocates for that. So when we walk into our children's schools, whether it's a early childhood center or a kindergarten classroom or first grade, second grade, and we think, gosh, kids don't look like they're having fun here, then we need to ask that. Some of us need to let go. I mean, I know that I'm of that generation because I'm a little bit of an older parent, right? I had children later in life. With my daughter at 40 and my son at 38, I need to let go of what school was for me, right? Because school wasn't that much fun for me. I had some great teachers, but it was all very, very orderly. And I'm not saying order is bad, but it wasn't a lot of fun. And I think we as parents want to go in and say, hey, our kids should be engaged. Not that it should be a bunch of fun and games all the time, but our kids should be engaged in this process, not just sitting and listening. And I think that we need to let go of some of the things that we think school is. I think, I wish there were more opportunities for parents to be able to get time off of work, that there were better family work-family policies. Maybe that's another show, right? Because we hear about wanting families to be engaged, but if families can't take time off their job to go visit schools, what are they supposed to do? If they're going to lose their job, they can't lose their jobs, and they can't feed their families. It's sort of this, vicious cycle. But I wish there was more time for families and parents to go visit schools. Look like, and that not every school looks the same, right? So that they know what to advocate for, because sometimes we just don't even know as parents. We only know what we experienced a really long time ago.
Well, I can agree with you more than that's an idea for a show, because I feel like a lot of parents do feel kind of stuck. They want to be involved, but then they're in this box, and this they feel restrained because they have these work policies and only a certain number of days off, and then if your child gets sick, you use your days for that, and so on and so forth. So, yes, I think as a society as a whole, we really need to both embrace and really work at making the family the center, really, of what this country is about. I think that's kind of how we've lost that, I feel. It's work, to pay the bills and put food on the table, but those things are necessities, but my goodness, being actively involved in your child's education to me is just as important.
Right. And I have to say that's one thing early childhood education really gives parents a sort of a opportunity to do in a way that's I don't want to say when the risks aren't as high, because the risks are still, they're still pretty high stakes, but if you have your child in a center-based child care center that's of a high quality, you drop your child off and the center, encourages you to stay, right? It's one of the things that they're actually charged to do. So you go in, you sit with your child, you're encouraged to come and read, you're encouraged to just pop in. And I think that starts to change sort of like, this is what we expect education to be as parents. I have to say I had sort of this really hard transition. I think it was harder for me than my kids going from pre-K to kindergarten, because I was so used to walking my children into their pre-K classroom, helping them hang up their coat, saying hello to the teacher, getting them settled, and then they go to a big school and they have to say goodbye at the door. And then I think, but why? Like, why do we do it that way? Like, parents should be welcomed into the school, right? It takes all of us together to make it successful for a child. I'm not expecting my children's teachers to do it all by themselves. I'm part of that. But when you feel like you can't even get into the building, then it's hard. But if that's what you've experienced in the early childhood sector, you start to question that a bit and say, hey, I want to be part of this building, right? Just like I was when my kids were in pre-K. Like, I was part of the building. So I think we have to, like, as parents, we have to get together and talk about these things. And that's what some of the work we do, just really bringing family members together to say, tell us what you think about it. And we don't call it a support group, or we don't even call it training. We don't, just call it gatherings. Because all parents, I'm sure, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I love having time talking to parents who have the same thing going on as me, because then I feel like, I'm not in this alone.
Well, said that, Michelle, because that's kind of what birthed Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, because I just felt like I was experiencing so much, and I just wanted to talk to everybody about it.
Yeah.
And, a lot of my friends, so I'm like, wouldn't it be nice? Because my goal, Michelle, if one mother each episode can say, her too? Really? I thought I was the only one. Then mission accomplished, because
exactly.
You need a sense of community and feel like you're not just, chances are you're not the only mother experiencing whatever it is you're going through.
You're right, and I have to say I have got to, so this is I appreciate this both ways, because now I know that I can listen in and get some. It's not even about help, just hearing from other parents, right? Like, we all need that. I mean, the days of, and I don't know, I don't want to get too sort of, Pollyanna, right? But like, people aren't home like they used to be. You're not going out in the middle of the day talking to the neighbors about, oh my gosh, did your kid do this, or what happened? What do I do about this, right? And I think your blog and your show is making that different for the 21st century. So I want to thank you for that, right? Because now I can go in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm not the only one struggling with whatever it is. So I appreciate that from you. We need this. Moms need this.
Thank you. That's what I thought. But, what do I know? Little old me. I said, I'm just going to give it a whirl and see. So to hear you say that is, like, really encouraging, because this was a risk for me, So that's really, really great and just made my day. And so I guess I'll end with this, Michelle. Like, tell us a little bit about your kids, because I love how you're wearing both hats here in this interview, and that's really why I reached out to you. You just are amazing. So tell us a little bit about
Thank you. You too. You're amazing. I don't know how, you've got two little ones, right? And so I remember being in that place. I think our kids have the same sort of about 20 months apart, right? And my children now are in first grade and in third grade, and they both attended. My husband and I made the choice that we would both keep working full time, so they both attended a really high quality Star 4 NAEYC accredited child care center here in the city of Pittsburgh. And I have to say that I think that child care center had, not only did they know exactly what my children needed, but they knew exactly what I needed as a mom, right? Those teachers were so in tune. I mean, I have to tell you this, Denise, they were so in tune when my son was born. And now you have to remember, my office is in the same building as the child care center, right? So it's like, and for the first 6 months, my son was across the hall. And so, you can't get a better situation than that. But his infant teacher knew that I was struggling, right? That I was struggling with some postpartum depression, that I was struggling with going back to work. She just knew from all the years working with moms and dads, right? And she was so kind to pull me aside and say, look, you need to just come in here and hang out. You need to come and meet some of the other parents so that you know you're not going through this alone. And I have to say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, right? And it really taught me that, I got to get to know other parents. And now that my kids are in first grade and third grade, I try to remember that, right? So my daughter's in first grade now, and she's having a little bit of a hard time going to school, transitioning to first grade. So I've immediately, reached out to some of the other moms and said, so how's, so-and-so doing? And I love my kids, and I have a great husband, and, we have so many blessings, right? We are so, so blessed. And we have to remember that, not every day is, easy, but how do you, take at least some time during the day and just really be interested in what your kids are interested in, and you talk about it with them, and you play that game with them, and you experience that with them, and you say to yourself, this is going to pay off, right? Because you're taking interest in their interests, and that's going to grow into, a love for them. Just the way my mom used to take an interest in me. I always loved to play school. I know it's probably not surprising to anybody. She'd always play school with me, and then look, I became a teacher, right? And they're doing well, and I think their PreK, their early childhood experience helped with that. And I have a saying that the days are long, but the years are short, right? So just enjoy every minute with them.
So that's really a great way to end this interview. If you had one piece of advice, it seems like that would be it. Am I right?
Absolutely, right? Just enjoy the time with them and give yourself a break. Give yourself a break as a parent, because it is. No matter what else you do, no matter what that title says behind your name, no matter what else you have to take care of at work, it is the hardest job you'll ever have. So give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself, too.
Well, Michelle, I can't thank you enough. This is something that I know will be such a blessing to so many parents, not just moms, but so many parents. And I just really commend you on the work that you're doing and wish you the best. And my hat's off to you. Thank you.
Yeah, my hat's off to you, too. Thank you. Thank you for taking this challenge and saying, I'm going to make a change of career and I'm going to do something good. So thank you for that.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to stay in touch with me by visiting www.deniseandlarosa.com, following me on Twitter @DeniseandLaRosa, on Facebook, Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa, and or email me at denise@deniseandlarosa.com. You can also sign up for my newsletter by emailing newsletter@deniseandlarosa.com. You have been listening to Mom Talk with Denise LaRosa. I will leave you with this quote by actor-comedian Phyllis Diller. We spend the first 12 months of our children's lives teaching them to walk and talk, and the next 12 telling them to sit down and shut up. Unfortunately, I couldn't agree with her more. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see more, please do me a favor and subscribe to my YouTube channel or check out some more videos.